What's going on? I'm Josh with InvestorSalad.com, where we try to help everybody, even the general investor, make better investment decisions for them. And we try to help people that don't understand investing or the stock market get a little better understanding so they can make better decisions for their future. Because it's better to save money in an investment account or a brokerage account than it is to put money in a shoebox. I'm fired up off of this play right now. I've been thinking about this all day long. Been a little busy. I had to get a different camera. That way you guys would have better quality because that other camera I had super blurry, but you learn through failure, so I am not tripping about it. We're talking about Moderna today. Moderna's been on my watch list for 2 years, since the beginning of the pandemic. And I have to be honest, so it was around April and May 2020. And initially, Moderna was bouncing from $10 to $20. Right around March, April, and May, when it got to $50, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I feel that Moderna is something that I feel comfortable investing in. The Moderna play at that time when they were trading for $50 was speculative because it was all dependent on if they were going to get FDA clearance for their vaccine for COVID. I didn't really know if anything after COVID was going to happen. And at that time, we all thought that after a month or two, life was going to resume back to normal and all of that. So I didn't even see anything long-term happening for Moderna. Things have changed dramatically in the past 2 years. Moderna, prior to COVID, was an alternative therapeutic research company. They were trying to develop different ways of dealing with diseases and problems that we don't have solutions for right now. They had no proof of concept. They had no proven safety and efficacy in any of their drugs that they were developing. COVID happened. They developed a safe and effective vaccine that has proven its weight all the way up until now and still is proving itself. They received full FDA clearance, not just an emergency authorization. They are fully backed by the FDA with that vaccine. A lot of investors in hindsight have looked at Moderna and said the train's left the station, the play is already over. COVID's nearing its end. Moderna has no place here. But if you think about it from a different perspective, Moderna proved that it can create effective and safe treatments using its new mRNA technology. That's a catalyst for a company. Because the average retail investor only saw the play on Moderna based off of its vaccine in COVID, once reaching its peak at $4.49 in September 2021, Moderna straight declined because everyone pulled back. That's how we got here to $153.31 per share. But I feel like this is a great entry point for a lot of the things that can happen with Moderna in the future, and we're going to get into that right now. First, I would like to breeze over some of the financials. From the last earnings report, Moderna brought in $11.83 billion. Off of that, they cleared $7.1 billion, which means the profit margins from revenue are roughly 59.68%, which is among some of the highest profit margins that I've seen off of a company to date. That's humongous. We're not sitting here saying, yeah, we know that their revenue came from COVID-related profits. I'm saying what they did with that money, how they managed that money once they got it. They were able to clear 59.68% of that revenue as earnings. That puts them in a financial position of short-term assets at $13.48 billion worth. Their short-term liabilities are $9.96 billion. I assume a lot of that has to do with manufacturing so many vaccine units to disperse to different places that need it. Their long-term assets are looking at $7.50 billion, and their long-term liabilities is $842 million. So the long term's looking straight, which is what the majority of people are concerned about that are investing or have invested in Moderna, they were worried about the long-term situation financially. They're like, yeah, so after this COVID thing's over with, well, what's going to happen next? Well, I can tell you, I don't know what's going to happen next aside from what they are pushing out on their news site. But I do know that they don't have a lot of liabilities lined up for the long term. So that's a positive sign for me as a person. One of the coolest things that I found out, because we're trying to judge Moderna based off of what they were doing before COVID as well. Moderna was not profitable before COVID, but a lot of research companies that delve into pharmaceutical research, they are not profitable until they bring a drug to market. And normally something doesn't happen as the way that this has happened for Moderna as a catalyst. But before COVID happened, Moderna was debt-free, and they've remained debt-free. Moderna's equity has jumped through the roof off the profitability of what's happened during the pandemic. But it's nice to know that even prior to that, they were debt-free. Their balance sheet leaves them, out of all the assets they have and the equity they have combined long-term and short-term at $10.7 billion in liabilities. And that's not horrible. So now there's two things that we really need to look at to understand if Moderna is a play right now, the fact they're trading at about 150. We need to look at the facts of what we know from the past, and then we need to look at the future to see if they have anything going on in the pipelines that could make them move forward in a great way. Fact number one, Moderna is sitting on a stockpile of cash that they've accumulated through the pandemic. Fact number two, Moderna is debt-free and financially stable. And fact three, as a result of the pandemic, Moderna has a drug, a vaccine that has a proven track record of being safe and effective utilizing their mRNA technology. Those are the facts that we have right now. The future is what matters. For retail investors right now that are scared about the fact that COVID's going away and they're like, oh no, there goes Moderna's profitability. They think the train's already left the station. However, that's where I'm chiming in, and I feel like the train just came to the station. All the passengers just jumped on it, and now it's about to head out. Here's why. In order for a research company to develop new drugs to treat different illnesses and diseases, they have to have a lot of money. If they want to remain debt-free, that money has to basically fall out of the sky in order for them to have a catalyst that can push them into running trials and developing those drugs. Well, that's exactly kind of the perfect situation that Moderna's wound up in. And conveniently enough, Moderna, over these years of developing new drugs and doing research on new things that can treat different kinds of diseases, they have two heavy-hitting plays. Moderna's been developing an HIV vaccine and a cancer vaccine. Just imagine, HIV and cancer yearly kill a lot of people. And up until now, and up until probably a little bit of time in the future, there is nothing we can really do to prevent that from happening. Not a thing. There's been companies trying time after time to develop something, and sometimes even using new technology, but what happens is their new technology fails. It's not safe. Something happens and the trials don't go through and turn out the way that they want them to. But Moderna's proven this new technology, and they're building this HIV vaccine and this cancer vaccine with that proven technology. Moderna is currently in a phase 1 clinical trial of an mRNA HIV vaccine, and the first participants have already been vaccinated. So we want to know how that clinical trial is going to turn out, but it's already underway. So that's something really great happening right now that can affect the future of Moderna. Another positive thing for the future is we now know 2 years into the pandemic, COVID's going to be something that we're just going to have to learn to live with. Hopefully not in such a way that it's just ravaging through the world and killing everybody, but in the sense of maybe hopefully its side effects will die down a little bit like catching the flu. And that's what Moderna sees, and that's what a lot of health professionals see. As a result of that, we're probably going to have to get yearly boosters or yearly vaccines, kind of similar to how we treat the flu now. Moderna is looking to combine a flu vaccine with a COVID vaccine or a COVID booster and put them together so whenever you go to get vaccinated for the flu, you're also getting vaccinated for COVID. So that would be kind of a cool way for us not to worry so much about COVID, but it's also something that they can do that can boost their profitability year after year. The other cool thing for the future is they're still in the developmental phases for their cancer vaccine, but that is on the forefront of their focus. And I feel so good about that because if that could just happen, then, they would, I don't know what would happen to them as a company. They would just blow up so huge because cancer is a really big problem around the world. I think I saw something the other day, like 1 in 6 people get cancer through their lives, and that's bleak and grim, and we don't want to talk about it because, there's probably more than 6, but one of us going to get it. I don't know. It's crazy. But the fact of the matter is something needs to be done about it. And I feel really solid with the fact they came up out of the blue 2 years ago, had some experimental technology, blew it out the water, worked on COVID, and it saved the lives of millions. Maybe they can do that with a cancer vaccine too. And this all brings us to 3 points, okay? 3 things that needed to happen in order for Moderna to turn into a company that is going to be here to stay after the pandemic and be a company that not only climbs instead of loses money during this pandemic, but makes a substantial amount of money and then continues to after COVID goes away a bit, is they needed these 3 things to happen. They needed to prove that mRNA technology could successfully work and safely. They did that. Moderna needed cash and equity and capital for them to further research on other drugs that they are trying to develop. They got the cash. And third, if they could prove that their HIV and cancer vaccines work as well as their vaccine for COVID does, then it's over at that point. My final verdict on Moderna is right now we're trading at the end of today at 153 and some change. That seems like a nice entry point for a company that could literally be included in every history book around the world. Of course, that's a speculative statement, but a lot of investment decisions are based off of motley fool speculation, or you see this headline, you're like, oh my God, I got to jump on this. But this is a proven speculation to a degree, right? So that's how I feel about Moderna. How do you feel about Moderna?